Now card 2 is based around this little verse, so what I need to make is the single flower that's in the verse. Now I stamped the sentiment and I've heat embossed it, and I've created my frame. The first frame, the fancy frame, is made from the Decorative Labels 28 with a die inside it that just allows the verse to be seen. So that's my first frame. Then my second frame is created from the plain Labels 28 with that smaller die tucked in it, and that gives me the frame that sits on top. Now they've both been layered on there with foam pads. So for my base card I've used grand large labels again. I've cut 2 of the largest die to create my base. Then I've cut 2 of the next size down and I've matted and layered them together. I've created the faux nesty behind, and then from the border die I've made some fancy work that goes just underneath the ribbon, and I've put 2 layers of ribbon on that card, and I've done exactly the same for the inside. So there is my base ready for my card with my sentiment. So I'm now going to go ahead and make some flowers. So to make my flower for my card I have used the foliage die, and I have cut some of the leaf shapes, and then I've used Blossoms 5, and I have used not the first die but the next 3, and I've cut lots of different petals for my flower. So from the largest die to make my flower I need 2 of the shapes. From the next one down I need 2 more, and from the next one down I need 3. I haven't used the largest and the smallest dies in the set. Now once you have your shapes cut, you need to take each one, and along these ridges you're going to cut towards the centre, but don't cut all the way in, because if you do your petals will just fall off. So this is all you're doing along each of those ridges, and you're going to do this on every one, so that now you have individual petals. And then once you've done that, you need to spritz the card so that it's quite wet, and I'm going to do it on both sides, and this just makes it a little bit more pliable for you to work with. And then once you've done that, you need to take each one and you're going to screw it all up. And then once you've screwed it all up, you're going to open it out again very carefully, and this is the same for each and every one, and you're going to pop it on one side and you're going to let them dry, or you can take a heat gun to them and dry them a little more quickly. And then once they've all dried, you can then go to the next stage. Now once they're dried, they're quite stiff, and then all you need to do is just take your ink, and I'm using aged mahogany, and you just need to ink all the edges, and you're going to do this on every petal, and this just adds definition to your flower when it's created, and the creases will just pick up a little bit of extra ink. And then once you've done that, this is what you will have. Now the next thing to do is, with the larger petals, is just to create some shape into these petals. So all I'm doing is just pushing them into the centre and folding the outer edge backwards, and I'm going to do that on every one, and that just gives a little bit of shape to my petals. And then with the smallest one, I'm going to shape all these petals inwards So with my fingers again, I'm just curling all the edges inwards. And then we come to the gluing stage. These are all just pushed towards the centre. So to work on the first three, the three smallest, I'm just going to put some glue along each of those petal edges, because this is the bit that's going to form the bud that's in the centre of your flower. So if you push the two opposite ones together and then work your way in around the sides, working on opposite sides, you're just going to make sure, it's a bit fiddly, you're just going to make sure that those edges are all pushed in, and then they will overlap, and that will give you the first part to your little bud. Now if I move my fingers it'll all fall apart till the glue sets, so I have to hold it for the moment. Now once the first one is stuck, you're going to put a blob of glue in the middle, and again you're going to put glue on each of the petals, and you're going to come quite the way up to the top, so then you can sit that in there and try and interlock, try and offset the petals. So we can have that petal coming over those two, and this one on the opposite side will come over there, and you're going to work your way around that so that all these petals are now fastened in place. And again, you may need to just hold it until the glue sets, but this is now forming the bud for the middle of your flower. So we're now going to repeat that process on the next one. And I'm putting plenty of glue on so it holds it in place. Sit it in the middle, put opposite sides to the petals up, and work your way around the flower so that they're all glued in place. Now once your glue's set, this is the bud that is going to be either a separate entity on your card, or it's going to be the centre of your flower. So what you need to do is to make it darker. So with my distress inks, I'm just going to go around my dried bud, and that is the finished bud for your card, and that's quite hard, it's quite solid. So once the glue's dried on this, I shall do the same with that one. So we can either leave the bud as it is and use it on the cards, and this one I've just added some glitter to the top of it. But what I want to do now is go on to the next stage, and that is to take the next two petals down, and we're going to add this bud to the centre of these. Now if you remember, we curled these petals backwards so that they're curling out, and what I'm going to do is just put some glue in the middle, and I'm going to come partly up the side of the petals, and then I'm going to sit the bud in the middle, and I'm going to use alternate sides, so I'm pushing the petals in and holding them in place until the glue just grabs a little bit, and I'm going to work my way around all the edge of this flower until all that glue is just holding those petals in place. So the next thing to do is add this to the next one down. So I'm going to repeat the process with the glue, and I'm going to make sure that half the petal is covered. I'm going to sit this in the middle and do the same process, but at any stage from the bud to adding the petals you can stop, and it will give you a different size flower each time, but I want mine bigger, so I'm offsetting the petals and I'm doing exactly the same thing, adding in those petals and curling it up around that bud. And again, I just need to wait until the glue has taken before I can move on. So the next thing to do is to repeat the process into the largest leaves, but if you wanted to, you could leave your rose at that size. Now this is dry clear glue, so the glue will not show once the flower is finished, but I'm going to go on to the next stage. So I'm adding my glue in the bottom, coming halfway up the petals and popping all that into the middle, and again I'm going to offset the petals. So we'll push that down into the middle and we'll bring the outer edge petals around the flower and hold it in place until it's all set, and then I can repeat that process and pop that into the middle of that flower. And then once I've done that, I'm going to ink over the edges again, and it will give me a rose that looks like this. Now if I wanted to, I could add some glitter around those petals and I would have a flower that looks like that. So there are the different stages to your flower. Now I've created all the elements for my card, so I'm ready to put this card together. This is my base, which is matted and layered. The inside is lined. I've added a frame around my verse. That's ready to go onto my card. There's the flower that we've just made. I've created a little bow from the same ribbon, and I'm going to put a centre over the knot, just a little diamante centre over the knot. And I've also got a little bud that will sit with my flower if I need it, and I have my leaves. So I'm going to put this card together and show you the finished result. So to the back of my sentiment I've added some foam tape, and I'm just going to add that on my card. Make sure that's on straight. At the top of it I'm going to add in the bow, and I'm going to use some hot glue just to pop that in place, and that's going to sit along there. And then in the centre of the bow I'm going to add in a little diamante with a pink pearl in it, and that's going to sit along there. So along one side of the sentiment I'm just going to add in the leaves, and I want them to be partly over the framework, and then on there I shall add in the rose. Now if you wanted to, you could also add in a flower bud, but that would be your choice. Now I've just wanted to add some more embellishment to this card, and this is some lovely diamante swirls that I've got, but don't be afraid to cut this up, because what I want to do is add a piece over there. So I'm just going to chop this down, and that's going to sit along this side of the card. And then I want a smaller piece coming out of the other side, so I'm going to chop that piece down and add this in along the right hand side. And because of the diamante in the button on the ribbon, all that blends in together. So there we have the card.